Hello, my friends, and welcome. Welcome to week 4 of our poetry celebration. It is flying by, and it has been so much fun. I'm just delighted that you're here with me today. Thank you for being here. I'm Kate Chadbourne, and I'm a poet and teacher, and I'm hosting this celebration in conjunction with Jumping Fox Design, a company, woman-based company from California that makes beautiful journals and binders and writing tools. And they are very generously providing us with the prizes for this celebration. So we love them, and I certainly love all of you. I'm happy to say that we have 27 poets who are participating, 28 if you count me, because I'm in the game too, 29 if you count Wes, and then we have another few from our community. We've got Doug, and we've got a number of us. So we're a little bit more than 30 poets writing together this month, and I'm just so pleased and so grateful. So I want to start right off. We have some wonderful poems from our community of poets. You might remember that last week our Spark and Dare were around the idea of writing a poem from the perspective of someone else or about someone else's experience. And I received another wonderful haul, treasure trove of poems about that and about all kinds of other things. And again, I just want to reiterate, any of the sparks are only invitations. You, of course, write the poems you want to write, and I welcome them all. So I want to start off with a few poems that are not in response to this theme, and yet they kind of go together. The first is I just loved this poem. It's by Louise. Louise is also a songwriter and passionate musician, and this is just a beautiful little poem. It's called How Does the Moss Know? How does the moss know when to grow? How do the leaves know when to come out? These are the things I want to know. These are the things I know little about. That packs a big punch, doesn't it? It's got a whole philosophy in 4 little lines, and also you can hear the beautiful, it's lovely to hear something with the rhythm and rhyme that she's woven in there. So thank you, Louise. I just love that. My friend Terry and I have been friends for years. Terry is also a Gaeilgeoir, a speaker of Irish. And I was just so pleased. She wrote this beautiful poem. It doesn't have a title, but it also brings us into the garden. A lot of things have happened. Temporary silence, tender exploring, self-reflection. The garden is luscious. Stopped mind. I imagine leaving the question open. Don't you feel that poem? Don't you feel the spaciousness of that poem? The garden is luscious. The garden of poetry, my friends, is luscious. Now, I want to read a poem to you that comes to us from the poet laureate of Arlington, Massachusetts. That's magnificent. Her name is Jean Flanagan. She's also an Irish woman. And I just was so grateful that she would consent to send us some poems and to play with us. And I thought this poem, which is called My Mother's Garden, dovetailed with the other 2, but also with our spark for this week. So this again is by Jean Flanagan, the poet laureate of Arlington, Massachusetts. My Mother's Garden. Now my mother sees life in shades of gray. Faces appear as shadows, and voices are unclear. It used to be she saw flowers grow each morning. When she awoke, black-eyed Susan and irises filled her. Now the garden is overgrown. The white phlox have turned a shade of pink. The once perfect dimensions of color and shape are gone. She used to say that the garden was where she could think, where troubles came and went with the weeds. That's beautiful, that the change of the garden, the change of thinking, the change in our lives. So I'm grateful for that. Now, this poem comes from my friend Deb, who is truly one of the most magnificent singers you could ever hear. And Deb is blushing as I say that, but that is the truth. She's an amazing singer. And she's also a great friend. And this poem is called Driving and Talking. My friend is driving and talking, talking and talking, and I don't have to, neither one. A blessed relief from my shoulder, my knee, and my throat. Not that I don't say anything, just much less than usual. By our return trip, it seems we each have let a little bit slip from a personal place, another relief. They needed air. The driving is without effort. The electric vehicle barely whispers under her touch. She has wrist braces, but speaks of pain that has passed, every kind of pain, spoken with equanimity and no self-pity. Her steady, speedy speech includes me. A few questions, no monologue this. We make our way onward in the little blue capsule of a car, silently confirming that we are safe in our own secrets and sorrows and in her steering. I love the subtlety of that, and I love the care that she takes to let us know that this talking by her friend is actually a gift to her. It's not a burden, and it includes her. It's beautiful. My friend Bo, also a wonderful musician, and Bo and I, a long time ago, used to make music together and had so much fun. He sent a kind of a historical poem that I just loved getting it. It's called Honesty is the Best Policy by Bo. My father-in-law, Philip, was a baker's apprentice in Germany when he was 13 years old. I saw the cat pee in the sugar. You can't bake with this sugar now. Shh, don't say anything to anyone, said the baker. He went home and told his parents what happened. Don't eat any of the pastries from the baker this week. Well, he soon quit. He took the pastry recipes with him when his family fled to America a year later. Yummy pastry. That's marvelous, Bo. Again, it's a story in a poem, and it's a story about someone else's experience, and also in some ways about all of our experience. And that's what I like about this opening out, to think about other people's experiences and perspectives. They let us all in somehow. My friend Angela, another singer, you're probably sensing a theme, but I do happen to be very lucky to know a lot of great musicians and singers. I call her a siren because she sings by the sea. She wrote a poem from the perspective of a plant, and I just loved it. It's called Dandelions Speak. Here I am, roaring spring. I just have to say that is really marvelous. Roaring spring. Here I am, roaring spring. Yes, I disrupt your fashionable green blanket of suburban uniformity. However, my yellow flowers are generous provisions of both pollen and nectar, sweetness in their conversion to honey, jam if you so desire. But in early spring, allow honeybees and butterflies to feast, dancing upon my sunny faces. I grow where other wildflowers, or actually any flower, cannot grow. My roots loosen cemented ground. I am tightrope walker, balancing out acidic soil. My dandelion greens abundant and nourishing. Don't bully me by calling me a weed. Hear, hear. And when I go to seed, make a wish. Disperse my angelic puffs to the heavens. I am magic and can make your dreams come true. Yes, 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 dandelions. Speak up for yourselves. We love you. Angela, that's a beauty. That's a beauty. Now, just how lucky for me, but Angela's husband, Dan, who is one of the most gifted and accomplished sculptors you could ever encounter. Really, his work evokes a visceral reaction, and it has won many prizes. He's really a remarkable artist. And Angela and Dan together are a remarkable couple of artists. He sent me a longish poem called Coronavirus Follies and gave me permission to read one part of it to you. So I'm going to read this part. And this again, so Angela's poem from the perspective of the dandelions and Dan's poem from the perspective of coronavirus. Just, I thought, interesting from one couple. I am the virus. When you meet me in state house pavilions, in the torpor of gymnasiums, in the squalor of incarceration, in the decrepitude of a nursing home, or in a ghetto, a meat processing plant, in shelters, schools, courtrooms, grocery stores, celebrate my dispersal. I need you to become social, corporate, to wage war as soldiers in unison against other soldiers, to become schoolbound, to make use of bathrooms, bedrooms in the throes of adulterous romance, to pray and work together, to protest science and the magic of vaccines. I am the number of infections you will never know because you don't want to know, and you are willing to change the numbers. I am invisible. I am judgment. I am life. I am death. I am nature itself. I am what happens when you ignore me. I am truth, the thing that bonds you to the earth itself. To fail to honor this is the greatest corona folly of all. That is powerful. And also, I thought it's kind of wonderful that Angela's poem celebrates the dispersal of the seeds as we make our wish, as we blow on the dandelion seed head. And here the coronavirus says, disperse me. So again, I think art is interesting in that way, that we're making art in a community and that there are some threads that hold us together. And one more thing about Dan's poem. I am is a powerful, powerful sentence. We know that. And it's also a powerful way to begin making a poem. I am, and go from there. You could really say, I am, your grandmother's silver spoon. Go from there. I am the forsythia that didn't bloom. Go from there. You could do so much. Dan does so much with it. My friend Nick jumped in with us this week, and I was so pleased about this. And also, it took me a minute. I'm not going to say a single thing about this poem because it took me a moment to understand it. But then I loved it. It's called Reveling in Memories. Once upon a time during my 43rd year teaching Hatha Yoga and meditation at the University of Connecticut, Officers Tilley and Carson walked in. They wore badges, oddly, on a collar around their neck, bright, shiny gold. I invited the class to ignore them, though they'd been invited by the club officers, but it wasn't possible, because they walked around licking our faces. Officer Carson had a long and vigorous tongue, and because I grew up with beings like him, I not only put up with it, but reveled in memories of being loved by a lab. Nick, that is charming. And when I read that first, I literally thought of big human police officers walking around licking the yoga practitioners with their big tongues. And I thought, that's horrible. It took me a minute. So luckily, these are the great police dogs. So fun. So fun. Now, hooking on to this poem about police dogs, my friend Tricia, a marvelous poem, wrote a poem about Mish. Now, Mish, I guess you could call it video bombed us last week, as he does sometimes. He's sleeping right now. We'll see what happens. But I loved this poem. She went into the perspective of Mish. Mish by Tricia. One day I will be Mish, a luxurious cat with such a long tail Rapunzel would envy. I will lie only in the sun, curled on the pillow, content. Those days when you too sit in the sun, looking through the window, out past the trees to the lake, where I dream of dipping my paw, touching the scaly backs of fish, What you dream will be lost to me, as I think it is sometimes lost to you. I really love that. I really love that Trisha could project her imagination into the imagination of Mish, dreaming of dipping his paw and touching the scaly backs of fish. And then also the imagination of what Mish might say to me. That's marvelous. It's so much fun. I wanted so much to include these two poems by siblings. Now, we haven't heard from them yet this year, but I know many of you love them. And these are Declan and Rosie, who have been part of our celebration since the very first year. And they are marvelous poets. So this first poem is by Declan, and it's about a friend of his called Riley. So it fit right in this week. Riley. He screeched like a hawk before jamming himself down the slide, me following close behind. But I abandon him in pursuit of shade. But he follows me, sits down next to me, a faithful, loyal friend. Declan, your poems move my heart. There's so much action in them and so much feeling. That is marvelous. I abandon him in pursuit of shade, but he follows me, sits down next to me, a faithful, loyal friend. So much movement and excitement in that. It's beautiful. And then Rose wrote a poem called The Ball, actually about her brother Declan. The Ball by Rose. He was fierce as a leopard. He danced his sweet step. He approached me and I gasped. Then I kicked him and he got up and he asked me to dance. And that was that as we danced our sweet step. Brother and sisters, my friends, there it is. Here it is again. He was fierce as a leopard. He danced his sweet step. He approached me and I gasped. Then I kicked him and he got up and he asked me to dance. And that was that as we danced our sweet step. Rose, that is a marvelous poem. It feels so true of brothers and sisters. And again, it's so full of action and feeling. And the words are wonderful. And Declan, I hope you take that to heart, being fierce as a leopard and dancing your sweet step. Finally, one beautiful poem by my friend Colleen. She has so much in her heart. This is called Everlasting Gift, and, well, I'll just let you have it. I just loved it. Everlasting gift. I gave you a gift that cost a hefty too much. You forgot within a month it was given with love. So I warmed you some tea, sat and chat, then handed you a poem which made us both laugh. If we had to both choose which memory is better, I think we'd agree. A poem is forever. I think we'd all agree, Colleen. That's beautiful. That cost a hefty too much. That's just lovely language. So much. Everybody, I want to thank every one of you for the poems that you send. Given my druthers and an infinite time, I would read every one of them. They're so full of life. They're so full of you, and I really love getting them. So thank you. Well, I want to read just a little poem, and I'll show you again. I am loving this. This is the Jumping Fox design binder that next week I'll be drawing our prizes, and this is the main prize. We have 3 of these as prizes. It's just been a wonderful thing. I just went away for a little holiday and I brought it with me, and it was the perfect size for me to sit and write in. I've just been enjoying it so much. And again, just to show you, I've been keeping my poem. Oh, sorry. I know the glare is there a little bit, but the poem log, there's 23 poems in here. That's just exciting. And I want to be very clear. A lot of them are drafty, and they're almost a sketch. But I promised myself that I would write these poems every day. And I've been doing it, and it's just been such a beautiful gift of time to myself to just sit, and especially since we have this theme of people, to sit and think about people that I'm encountering. And I would probably not remember these encounters except for writing these poems. This one, I'd love to share. My friend and piano tuner came to me this week, and his beloved wife has Alzheimer's, and he talked to me about her, and I've known them for years. She's very, very lovely. And as in all marriages, there are tough moments and beautiful moments, but the place where they are right now is sort of achingly beautiful. So I wrote this poem, and it's called Eventually, and it's for David and Karen. Years ago, there was bitterness, ostensibly about money. She sided with her kids from the first marriage about what would happen eventually. He felt pushed out and cold. Now, he feeds her ice cream, bite by slow bite. Her words are gone, with all thought of money. The idea of eventually has utterly vanished. Still, she smiles, weightless as a bird, and he understands. The sweetness pierces him so deeply he thinks he'll die. But inside the ache, he senses it, life, with its terrible, astonishing knife that cuts away what seemed to matter and leaves open and pulsing only what does. Sorry, it makes me sad, but also joyful, because the love is there. The love is so much there for them. And that eventually, that's the place, that eventually. So, a poem from our Wes. And again, this beautiful book, if you haven't gotten it already, I have, just so you know, for Wes and this book, and for each of the poets who has given us poems through this time of our poetry guides, I have links all underneath the video. In that long note, just scroll down, you'll see a link to buy Wes's book. It's really, you could study poetry from this book. You could learn so much. I learned so much. I'm so grateful to Wes for being part of this celebration. So I want to read a beautiful poem by Wes, and then I'll give you, it inspires our spark for next week. This is called In Praise of a Tree. In the town photograph from 1905, the white pine is already old. It lifts its branches above the roof of our house. Today, they are higher. When we tilt back our heads to find where the tree has put its fine feathery crown, we can hardly avoid the sense of falling. For 200 years, it has climbed the ladder up out of itself, straight and tall as its forebears, once chosen to make masts for a king's warships. Here in the grass by our front door, this tree, which has done battle with wind and ice, carrying cargoes of squirrels and songbirds, and flinging winged seeds to feed them in spring, is a mother ship of its own making. Forget that the great lower branch is broken, and think of its struggle with the weight of a 2-day snow. And disregard the abandoned woodpecker hole, now risen to the height of our second floor. For on this May morning, the morning of my poem, it became the home of the honeybees. Think of them flying across the sky to swarm the hole, while we, in our excitement, threw open the storm windows that had sealed us in. Imagine the vibration of their single omnipresent hum as the tree took them into its ancient heart, singing this praise song, this music of the spheres. Oh, yes, yes, so beautiful. So I thought for our final week of writing poems, let's write a praise poem or a love poem. Now, that poem is a praise poem to a tree, but woven into it is really a praise poem to the poet's life in the house with his family. In the sense that the tree is in that family, the tree is part of that shared life. It's so, it's just such an expansive perspective. So I want to feel free to write a poem for a person, but if you feel inclined, trees are people too. Mish is a person too. I think, if anything, my sense of what a person is has expanded over the course of these weeks. So take this any way you like. So a praise poem or a love poem. And the dare is give it to someone. Now, when I say that, someone, you may not be able to give it to the being or the person that you write it for, but you can give it to someone. And I think it's good for us. I think it's a marvelous practice. You know, poets, like the early Irish poets that I've studied quite a lot, their poetry was really praise poetry. And they were expected to pony up those poems to really the king of their wherever they were. And then through the centuries, poets have written praise poems and poems to celebrate birthdays and poems to mark anniversaries and to mark the passing of people in the community. And I love that practical aspect of poetry that we, and all arts. And I know many of you, songwriters especially, and painters and storytellers, that you use your arts in those ways as well. So there it is. Write a praise poem or a love poem, and if you dare, give it to someone. So I hope that gets you going, and I hope you have a great week of writing poems, reading poems, loving poems. If you will, you can send poems to me by this Friday, the 28th of April, 5 p.m. And next week we will have we'll have some more poems from everyone and another one from Wes, and we will have our announcement of the prizes. So come back and see me. And again, thank you so much for your participation. Some of you are in every week, some of you are not. You are welcome any way you turn up. Watching this is wonderful. So thank you, and please do like it. It's helpful to me. It's very encouraging. I loved your comments, everybody. Thank you so much for your comments. Subscribe, all of the things. It's just wonderful to be in touch. So have a wonderful week. Thank you again, and let's continue to celebrate poetry. Bye for now.